This is a story about when I leaned so far into the masculine that I kind of sabotaged everything and didn't allow myself to have safety nets, and or there's just so many lessons along the way. Be vulnerable about these today and talk to you about them, because I know that if it's like, these are the things that if you're trying to attract, or if you are with somebody and you're like, is this the man that I can rely on for everything, and like for them to be my knight in shining armor, like, is this the person? I have so many nuanced thoughts to share with you about that. So if you're like me, I was super independent, and during my upbringing, like in the 90s and 2000s, I'm 32 now, we were inundated with like, be hyper, independent, women can do anything. And so I did that. And my family relationships weren't the greatest, my family upbringing. And so I didn't know what a secure, loving, consistent masculine feels like. And also I didn't get that from the feminine either. She was consistently present, but emotionally absent and overwhelmed. And so what happened before I met my husband now, and who I'm actually separated from right now, like we're actually still very much going through a lot of these learnings. And the reason I'm talking about it already is because like the realizations we're having are profound. We've been together for almost 5 years, and I can see many things leading up to what's happening. And I want to help other women like you understand maybe some details so that you can avoid some of the same mistakes that I've made. So let's get into it. I was a super hyper, like productive, independent woman, right? But I was burning out. I was so sick and ill in my body, and I couldn't keep up with the demands, and so I was like working a full-time job. I was a single mom. I had my own house. I was just doing it all. And my family really wasn't there. So once again, I was just doing it all myself. And there came a time when I noticed I really had to, instead of leaning on boys and men, going back and forth with old people or dating new annoying people, I just had to like buckle down and take care of myself emotionally. And so I went to yoga for that. I started going and nourishing myself and coming back into my body, and that felt so good. So I obviously teach that here because it's so important that you're not abandoning yourself, because that's why we then reach out to everyone else to fill whatever like we're not giving ourselves. And I don't think it's about like being hyper independent, but it is about feeding your own soulful life so that then you're not reaching from a wounded place. And that's where things get dicey. I learned more quickly to say no to the wrong relationships and to move on more quickly. So that was the great part about that. And then I met my husband, and we just fell hard. Like we just like were together, known each other, but nothing had happened. And then when we finally like went on a date, which was like 6 months later or something, like we went on a date and then we waited a week. And then after that week, we had never separated again. And I truly believe this man is my divine counterpart. And he feels the same way about me too. And we're still figuring out some of our way through the complexities of what this means in the modern life, because we weren't raised with the divine masculine and divine feminine and having good role models, and us being initiated as younger people into these roles. And so there's a lot of learning that, again, we're just doing on our own. We're just figuring it out. But the mistake I made because I was so tired and fatigued from being in my own masculine, that I finally was like, oh my God, this is my man. Here he is. I love him. He loves me. Oh, we're getting married. We got married. And I had like before had even gone on a date with him, I had already like had the intuition that I was ready for another child. And that's kind of wild for me to say even then, because I was pretty much like one and done with my daughter, who I was a single mom with, because that's just like really hard. And anyways, nope, something inside of me was calling and I really wanted another child. And so he was immediately like, okay, that's fine, like I'll give you whatever you want, I love you. But hindsight, we should have waited. We should have like strengthened ourselves, learned about each other, and learned how to work together before putting on extra demands onto our relationship. Because having new babies and having a family is very much a very involved, intensive process anyways. But then being a brand new couple, it obviously made things very tricky. That is something I would say to learn from, is to not allow, like, I call this the pendulum swing now. Like when I'm working with people now, it's like because I was so far in my masculine, I just like dumped everything and I was like, I'm gonna be so far in my feminine. I'm not gonna like do anything that's masculine. He can take care of it all. But what happened is then I didn't understand where his growth points were. And I didn't see clearly where he and I were not, we had, could say, like holes in our net. We had put our nets together to cast out into life and take care of ourselves and all of this. Like we didn't know where each other's holes in the nets were. So then when we go to try to like have a life and build a life together, then there were all of these gaping spots where we needed to remedy and fix, and that just takes time. And having a new family and having our older children that we were also integrating and putting a household together and running a household together and learning to be in love with one another without the what I call the trauma drama, with all of the distortions that we've been like imprinted with because of our history and life already, right? Like none of this is blame, right? We all are going through life, and it's what I call healing within our humanity. Like we're just here to heal and walk each other home, as what Ram Dass says. So, but the reality of that is like if we allow our woundings to just like sweep out from underneath us, then we could be like swept out and just groveling for something to hold on to. And it's a scary process to do that. So these are my lessons. Don't just let go of everything. You know, like if you're a woman and you have a career, don't like let go of all of your career. Like just make sure that it's still in your back pocket. You could go to it, back to it if you needed to. Because like even God forbid if you like your husband gets in an accident and can't work, like then you're gonna have to step up and come into your masculine again and have that. You know, like you're a team, and there is the masculine and feminine in each one of us, and having that divine union within, and then we allow that to match or dance with the divine union within our counterpart. And so that's what we're doing now. That's what we're developing. You know, it's still constant learning because we learn these lessons on a deeper and deeper level every time. So another thing that I learned was to really identify the way that you have your own defense systems, and then the way that they obviously do too, and then the projections. So a lot of times if you experienced a lack of union in your caregivers, they weren't always present, they weren't always maybe the nicest or most emotionally stable. If you had to grow up fast, you know, you're likely an empath, you could feel a lot of the turmoil in the environment but weren't able to be your authentic self, then all of those woundings come out in relationship. And the way that we were wounded, because we don't want to feel that way again, we instantly project it onto the other person. So like for me, something I would project is that he never understands me enough, and therefore doesn't like me because he doesn't take the time or he just doesn't understand me on this deep visceral level. And because of that, then I couldn't see the ways that he was loving me, that attention and validation. And so just know that that projection is what creates, or what in psychology they call like the confirmation bias. Like your brain will literally try to see what you think is the truth and based off of your previous belief systems versus seeing reality. And so it really does take a lot of introspection and seeing things consciously, which is why I teach what I teach, because it's so important that we have these capacities, that we have these skills. And so being able to be present in the moment. And so I'll just tell you right now, real quick, one of the foundational teachings that I teach here in Drop Into Being is the RID wave. The RID wave is actually something that my husband and I both came up with. We teach in a different space, but it is recognize, identify, and decide. Recognize the sensation, the bodily experiences you're having, and then identify the thoughts, beliefs, ideas, experiences, memories that are flooding through your brain, and then decide how you want to act, how you want to move forward, who you want to be. So that's like a super, super quick synopsis of that skill. So please feel free to I'll link a video to our other YouTube channel where we explain it. But also please stick around because I'm going to launch a mini course very soon where I give you all of these details as well. Another turning point in our relationship after we decided, we figured out, okay, these are his and her defense mechanisms. And then you can spot those without taking them personally and then amplifying the situation, right? And then having that self-awareness in the moment to recognize, identify, and decide how and who you want to be so that you're not at the whim of the relationship. You can still stay centered in who you are and conscious, like the conscious observer of the situation instead of getting derailed by it. The last turning point that I want to talk about in this video is when he and I were able to identify that we had an attachment pattern that was not helping us. So there's the anxious and avoidant attachment patterns, and you can be a mix of both, or you're secure. So people who grew up with attending caregivers, family that loved them, that were very attentive and validating and really built them up and all of this stuff, they are securely attached. They know that they are loved, that the world is safe. However, when you don't have attending caregivers and things were inconsistent or volatile around you, then you have likely a insecure attachment, which is either the anxious or avoidant. And a lot of times the anxious and avoidance come together because it's an attraction to the wound. And I've always known this because I'm trained in psychology, but it even took me so much, it took me 5 years for us to, 4.5 years for us to pinpoint this as one of the main causes of our trauma drama. And I say that because I want you to remember how complex these things are, how human, our human experience is just so complex. And it's okay that things take time, and it's okay that we're learning things still, no matter how old you are or no matter how many relationships you've been in, it's all okay. I'm trying to talk fast because I'm trying to keep these videos short, but man, I have so much to say. So please stick around so we can share more. Okay, so then we figured out that attachment style, so that's what happens, you start triggering one another, and our wounds were perfectly primed to trigger the other person. So when he needed me and I felt suffocated, then I would try to run away, and that would trigger his abandonment wounds, and it just went back and forth. And learning to stop that cycle so that we can actually create intimacy and safety within the relationship, so that we can actually be present and hold one another in these complexities is the biggest skill that couples need to learn. And so that means, I was saying before, that the feminine and masculine are both within us. So both partners need to know how to do this. Both partners need to know how to empathize, how to be with their emotions, to care for the emotional experience of the other person without saying or intellectualizing it, without being well, you shouldn't feel like that because, we have a great life and blah, 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 right? And At the same time, with the masculine, both partners need to know how to hold the container. If somebody's going through something, then we need to hold the container and switch roles real quick until the other person is back to feeling, capable and confident again. And not saying that that should be like a 10-year process. Like, obviously that's not in balance, but there's some sort of balance and dance that you're figuring out with your partner about these dynamics. So there's so much more I could say about that, but I'm going to leave some of that to a different video. And what I do want to finish up saying is that if you're the feminine and you are very feminine, because a lot of times a very feminine woman and a very masculine man are going to match. Again, it's the polarity and the yin yang. So like, and you complete each other. So like, woman is kind of feminine, but like kind of towards the middle, then she's going to attract someone here, and they're going to have less variability. They're going to be pretty stable in their relationship because they themselves are pretty stable within the masculine and feminine. However, as you come out onto the spectrum and you come farther away from the center, then these relationships are going to have a lot of the learnings to do of how to balance the masculine and feminine energies within them. But they're also very passionate, very spicy, very illuminating, very exciting, very transformative. And so that's why we like those relationships. However, again, we don't want the trauma bonding, the woundings to sweep us out into the sea, like you don't want that. As you are a feminine looking for her, or if you're looking for your counterpart, either if you're a man or a woman still listening to this. So the point was that the more that I could relate to the inner and feminine within me and the masculine, I could recognize, okay, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm so burnt out in my masculine. I need to come over here to my feminine. How do I do that in the day-to-day? How do I have more balance in the day-to-day? How do I keep more in tune so that I don't just kind of recklessly try to like boomerang and say, I deserve it. I want to be over here. And then we feel like a little child who's just like, once again, not getting their needs met. And so remembering that everything is a reflection, and everything is here to teach us what we need to learn. So everything I've been through, I truly believe, was here to help illuminate these patterns that I still had within inside of me. And it doesn't make the relationship right or wrong. It doesn't make him right or wrong. It doesn't make me right or wrong. It just means that this was the alchemical experience that we were having. And so blessings to all of you who are really in it and doing that and having empathy and compassion for yourself and for your partner and for your children. Probably, these are also dynamics that affect our relationship to our kids. So I do really truly pour my heart and soul into my writings and into putting out for you guys offerings. So I do have a book on Amazon, How to Find Your Soulmate. I can link that below. Still building that mini course I mentioned, so stick around for that because it also has a 120-page journal that will help you shift through the rid wave, your own inner mastery, so that you can then master your world and your relationships. Yeah, just stick around. Like, I want to have more of these conversations. I want treats with you guys, and I want to have lives, and it's just like, let's do this together, because this is really what's being shifted in the collective right now. It's very potent, and we're, collectively going through the masculine and feminine being transformed, and a lot of distortions are being cleared between the masculine and feminine, but that also brings up a lot of triggers and a lot of woundings. So if you're here for that, I'm here for that, and let's do it together.